Right. Morning, everyone. How are you all doing? We've just been discussing the weather. It's very muggy in Lincolnshire and very humid, and it sounds very the same in Leicester, put it that way. We're here to learn everything about GA4, just to get a bit more information about you. And whilst people are still coming online, we've just got a couple of polls to do, and then I'll hand over to Ed. Just to also make you aware, the handouts today, we're going to probably, we're going to look at whether we're going to release them or not, because Ed is going to make this highly interactive. So the slides really aren't going to be necessarily as worthy. Okay, right. First question. What is your current GA4 status? I have GA4 set up and working. I have GA4, but it's broken. I do not have a GA4 account, I think that should be, and I haven't got a clue. Help. So far, I'll give it a few more seconds to kick in before I speak about it. Oh, okay, there's a mix now. So 56% have a GA4 account set up and it's working. 11% have a GA4 account, but it's broken. 21% do not have it set up properly. And 27% just haven't got a clue. So that just gives you a bit of an insight. And then we've just got one more to go. This one. How much do you know about GA4 right now? Are you a total beginner? Do you not know much? It says here, I'm hoping to use this very soon. We are using this now, but not sure what I'm doing. Using it, but we need to understand so much more about this and using this and feel I'm an advanced user. So again, there's a bit of a broad mix. No one's saying advanced, which you'd expect regarding the timings and things. So 25% total beginner, 31% hoping to use it very soon but don't know much, 12% we are using this now but not sure what I'm doing, so that's really honest, and 29% using it but we really need to understand so much more about this. And I think that's really the narrative coming out really a lot of the time. And wanted me also to mention that on the right hand corner you can expand out your screen using the arrows if you click in the far right corner. So just to mention that, because Ed's going to make this more interactive than it's ever been. And please stick around till the end because we have got some offers and Ed set up a fantastic one, but I don't want to go too much into it. Hey Ed, no spoilers and all that.
No spoilers.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll be going now, turning off my screen, but I'm in the background to help, and there's a lot of the Annika team around today as well, so we're all here to support. Okay. Good luck, Ed.
Okay. Morning, everyone. So this webinar this morning I've got for you, this really acts as your kind of go live checklist for getting started with GA4, and it's going to help you with the migration process. For those of you who have started the process or or along the journey of the process, or maybe have a fully established GA4 account, we're just going to talk through some the main settings, things you need to watch out for, some of the things that can trip you up with the migration, and we're mainly going to kind of cover it. This is going to be very kind of baby steps, getting the essentials right. I'm not going to go into super detail about advanced configuration with this. This is just about getting you ready and set up ready for go live come July the 1st. So with that to note, so I'm going to do a combination of slides and walkthrough of the account itself. And we can I'm going to kind of show you how to do these things live in real time. So this is the agenda. So I'm going to talk about what exactly is going to happen on July the 1st and what the effects are going to be of that. Your GA4 setup status, so understanding actually where you're at with your current setup, things you might have overlooked, things you maybe still need to do. We're going to look at some like the essential core settings, things you need to just check off in order to optimize fully and make the most of GA4. We're going to talk a little bit about conversion tracking, just basic conversion tracking, because obviously that's important for most of you guys. And then we're going to talk a little bit about customizing GA4 for your own needs. So to recap what's happening on July the 1st. So firstly, as you probably all heard by now, Universal Analytics will stop processing data. So this might not necessarily be straight away, but Google have said that they'll gradually begin the phase out process of GA from this date. So come July the 1st, beginning in the first few days, you might not see any effect. You might notice that your account is still collecting data. That's fine. That will only be temporary until it stops processing that data. So anticipate it to all end on the 1st of July. GA4 therefore will be the only option for collecting new data. So any new data collected will not be in Universal Analytics property, or be in your GA4 property. And after July the 1st, you'll be able to access your existing data in your existing analytics account for at least 6 months. So Google have stated at least 6 months. So knowing Google, they'll probably extend that beyond 6 months. So it might be we get access to that data for much, much longer. But certainly after this go live period, we'll need to start thinking about how we want to back up our data, how we might want to export our data. But we'll do a future webinar on that at a later stage. For now, this is just all about being prepared for July the 1st and making sure that we've got an equivalent GA4 property that we can track our data within. So if you haven't already set up a GA4 property yourself, Google may have already done this for you. So it's important that you actually know what's what and you actually check to see whether you actually have a GA4 property in place. Because Google will automatically do this for you. It would have started the process earlier on in the year, beginning of March. It started to do this. And it may still continue to do this come July the 1st as well. So any existing Universal Analytics properties that you have, Google may automatically transfer those into equivalent GA4 properties as well. So this is Google trying to be helpful, trying to move people onto GA4 in this automated way, which is fine for some, but could be problematic for a lot of people. And I'll talk you through why those issues might be problematic. So we've all seen these pop-ups. So if you'll be notified if a property has been created for you. You'll see that when you access your analytics account. You'll see the pop-up there. You would have also seen the many various different banners of, Google Universal Analytics is going away. Please upgrade to GA4 now. We've probably all seen those banners. And what Google will do is guide you towards this setup assistant process to try and make the process of migrating to GA4 easier and more user-friendly. So your migration options. So to distill this down, because it is a bit confusing. People have seen these pop-up notifications. Some people are confused as to whether it'll be just a continuation of the data in the Universal account, or whether they'll have to start from scratch again. So basically you have two options. So you can reuse an existing UA property. So if you've got your site tagged out already and you're collecting transactional information and you've got conversions and goals set up and data flowing into your existing Universal Analytics, you can actually reuse that your existing implementation. So if you've got that implemented already, you can reuse that. Alternatively, you can just start completely from scratch. You can take it upon yourself to install a new GA4 property, go through the process of putting out new code onto your website and configuring it from scratch. So essentially starting with a clean slate and rebuilding from scratch. So there's some of the pros and cons with this. So the first option might be useful for people who really haven't been involved in Google Analytics, don't really kind of care about the implementation side of things. Maybe you've been a bit late to the party. You haven't done anything with your GA4 account at the moment. You haven't implemented GA4 on your website. You don't have the code on your website. Maybe the first option will be the right option for you. So reusing your existing universal analytics property. So this makes it very kind of easy and quick to do. And what Google will do is it will look to import your existing settings and bring those over to a new GA4 property that it will clone from you. So it's basically using your existing tag, an existing implementation, and Google is basically cloning that and making a GA4 property out of it. So that's a really kind of quick way to get started and get basic things in place. So whilst that's quick, that process can also be very messy with limitations, because quick isn't always good. Quick can be messy. So you might find that a lot of stuff gets transferred over. A lot of like the bad settings and things you meant to tidy up in your old account. You might find that a lot of the settings and things you don't want get carried across to your new GA4 property. So in that sense, it removes the control that you may have. So if you are really desperate, you've left it too late, then reusing an existing universal analytics property is probably my advice to you right now. In the ideal world, you would have implemented new GA4 code, whether this be via Google Tag Manager or via on-page Google Tag. Either way, if you've implemented brand new code, this is your chance to basically start from scratch, configure the account and the conversions and audiences based on your own needs. So obviously this takes more time. You need to be a little bit more familiar with Google Analytics and a little bit more of an advanced user to do this. It does involve, updating code, things like updating e-commerce code and other conversion tracking events and things like that. So it is more time consuming to do, but it will give you better payoffs in the longer run. So my first advice to you is understand your current situation. So ask yourself if you have a GA4 property currently. So the most straightforward way to do this is just to go into your analytics account and look under your properties to see whether you have a GA4 property available to you. By all means, ask around in your organization to see if a GA4 property has been set up. It will generally look like what you see in the highlighted screenshot here, where it'll be indicated as GA4, and it will have a different number with a different kind of prefix. So you won't see the UA in front of it. UA stands for universal. So you're looking out for an equivalent GA4 property. So that's the first thing. Secondly, having an understanding of how GA4 has been implemented in the first place. So if you don't know this, then don't worry. But ideally, you want to know how GA4 was implemented, whether this was done via something like Google Tag Manager, whether you're running it via like your WordPress site, Shopify via a plugin, or whether you've just plonked the code onto the website and you're tracking it that way. So you might be using a new GA4 pixel, or you might be using an existing GA3 pixel. So you might not have the answer to this. This might be something you might want to speak to your web developer or agency about in order to get this information. The third question you want to ask yourself is, do you want to carry across the settings from Universal Analytics? So you need to check to see if GA4 is connected to an existing property. So this is a really important step, and this is what I recommend you do. So you need to go into that GA4 property. And I'll show you this just in a moment. You need to go into that GA4 property and go into Setup Assistant. And what you'll see along the top is an indicator as to whether that property has been connected to a Universal Analytics account. If it is connected to a Universal Analytics account, that is not a bad thing. So that'll basically enable you to pull across key settings, and it will notify Google that these two accounts are for the same website. So basically, you're giving Google a heads up to say, this is my GA4 account, and this is the old property it was connected to. And this Setup Assistant, which we'll go through in a moment, is a nice, easy walkthrough guide and a good way to help you get started with GA4. And it's probably something a lot of you have begun the process of doing already. So by linking these up, so by connecting your GA4 with your existing UA property, you have the ability to be able to import across all the settings. Well, some basic settings anyway. So as part of this, it will pull across basic conversions, audiences, some of your Google ad links. So any kind of connected, existing connected accounts that you may have. And it will also pull across things like user management. So that may sound good, but it can also be problematic at the same time. So there's a few things that you're going to want to do here. So you're going to want to opt out of any Universal Analytics properties you don't want auto-migrating. You're going to want to disconnect any properties that have been implemented manually. And you're going to want to opt out of any settings you don't want migrating. So I'm just going to, if I just switch my screen now. So I'm just going to show you an example here. So I'm in this Universal Analytics account here. And where you want to go to is this Setup Assistant here, which many of you have probably seen before. So what you want to check is whether this property, whether this GA4 property you have is indeed connected. And you'll see that straight away from this banner at the top here. It also gives you a link to then be able to open that connected property if you want to see. So I can click on that and you'll see it opens up my connected Universal Analytics property. I can say no to that. And you can see that this Universal Analytics is also connected to my GA4 property right here. So as part of this, we've got this checklist down here that we need to take a look at. So this is really important that you do this. So I would recommend firstly that if you do have a GA4 property created, you go into it, you check whether it is connected, I would suggest at this stage you actually do connect it. You make sure that those properties are connected. Then what you want to turn your attention to is going through this list. So this is really important that you do this. So there's this checklist here, which it will it's literally you can see it as a step-by-step guide basically. So you'll see that on here you have the ability to be able to mark this as complete. So you can either manage the settings and turn things on. Once you've done those actions, you can then mark them as complete. So for examples, I'll talk a little bit about Google Signals a little bit later on, but for example, you can go through this, and the ones you really want to focus in on are things like conversions. So what will happen is if you haven't marked this as complete, Google will take it into its own hands to auto migrate these over to your new GA4 property when July the 1st comes. So when Universal Analytics stops, Google will take it into its own hands to bring these settings across. So this is up to you as to whether you want to allow Google to do that or not, or whether you want to take control over of it. So you can begin that process yourself. So for example, we can look to import conversions right here from Universal Analytics. If I click on that, it will then give me the option to select which ones I want to bring across. So what it's doing is bringing across it's basically bringing up a list of all of the conversions that I have in my old account, and it's giving me details about how it's going to translate that into Universal Analytics. So if I want to import across any of existing ones, I can choose to do that. So I can just select import selected conversions, and I can do that. If I do not want that to happen, say if I've already set up my conversions in GA4, it's really important that you go to this step of mark these as complete. So anything you mark as complete will not be transferred over to GA4. So this will basically stop the Google auto migrating a lot of these things over. The audiences is the same. So this is one that I would not advise you auto import. I would look to do this in a more kind of manual, organized way. So I strongly suggest that you mark define audiences as complete as well. So these are the steps you need to be taking. When it comes to linking Google Ads, it's important that you do that, and you should go through the process. So you have the ability to be either just import all the accounts that are linked to your Universal Analytics account currently. You can do that. So if I was to click on that, I would see all the ones that are actually linked to this property. If I move down here, if I want to import my Google Analytics 4 conversions into my Google Ads account, this is where I need to select what conversions I want to make available. And on this, I strongly again suggest you just mark this as complete and you take this action into your own hands. This could be really dangerous and messy if you auto allow Google Analytics to import your existing if you allow Google Analytics to import your GA4 conversions into Google Ads automatically. This is something you'll want to, again, systematically go through and do yourself in your own time. So again, my advice at this is to mark this as complete. That will mean that it will not get auto transferred over, and that will leave it up to you to do that. And the same goes for these. So basically, whether you have GA4 standalone or not, you're going to want to make sure you've got it connected and you have these marked off because any of these, any that are unmarked and are left open, Google is going to transfer across automatically. Okay. So that's the setup assistant part. So takeaway advice is get connected. Make sure your properties are connected in the first place using the setup assistant. But then pay attention to this checklist and go through and mark these all as complete. Okay, and that will complete the process. That will tell Google that you have confirmed your settings and that this GA4 account is the new version of your old universal account, and this will just help prevent Google from creating a new account for you. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So this all takes place within within setup systems within GA4. Okay, so right. Other things you want to look at. So once you've got those links and you've done your setup assistant, other things you're going to want to look at are your data settings. Okay, so you're going to want to head down into this part of your GA4 property. And you're going to want to go into firstly data retention, and by default it's set to 2 months, but you're going to want to change this to the optional 14 months. So basically, this is how long Google will store individual user information. So this doesn't really affect your main reports. What this will do is affect the exploration reports and situations where you want to do more kind of like detailed analysis. So if you only select it to 2 months, you'll only have 2 months worth of data of an individual. So you want to expand this to 14 months, take it to the maximum limit as possible. For reference, Universal Analytics basically didn't have an expiry on this. So you could essentially withhold the information until the user actually deleted their cookies. But in GA4, there's a retention period. So you're just going to want to change that to 14 months. Still perfectly reasonable, still GDPR compliant. So you're going to want to do that one. The other thing you're going to want to do is look at data filters right here. So data filters is for internal traffic, and you're going to probably want to turn this to active. So going to want to activate the filter, and that will help you. That will basically enable internal IP filtering when we go through and do internal IP filtering. So you might want to filter out internal traffic also. Okay, so you're going to want to activate that, make sure that filters on. You're going to want to head into data collection. And up here, you've got Google Signals data collection. So this is basically enhanced data collection using Google's advertising network. So having this activated really helps with cross-device tracking and more advanced audience insights. If you want demographic information and more kind of cross-device accuracy, you're going to want to enable this. So we're not going to go too much into like the full breadth of what Google Signals is, but certainly if you're interested in audiences, you're interested in collecting demographic information, you want enhanced collection, you're going to want to make sure that you've got Google Signals activated. Okay. The other thing you're going to want to do is go into your data streams. And you're going to want to click into here. And you want to go into your Google tag. And it's a few clicks, so I then need to click on this Show All button here. And hidden down here, I've got the ability to define my internal traffic. So I previously activated the filter, but I need to actually define my internal traffic here. So if I've got nothing here already, I need to basically give it a name. And then what I want to do is then input the relevant IP address. So I can input a number of ranges in here. So are you going to want to put in your, your office location in order to filter out staff, maybe at your home address. And this is going to obviously work better for like static IP addresses, but you have the ability to be able to set this up here. So I can just put in, I'm just going to put in some random figures, but you'll need to put in your actual IP address right there. And I hit create. Ooh. So now I've got my my office filtered and excluded. The other thing I'm going to want to do is go down to the adjust session timeout down here, and this is all as far as the actual session timeout goes, this can be left as it is. These are basically some of the settings for what constitutes an engaged session. So within GA4, we have this notion of engaged session, and that notion is just generally anyone who's been on the site for more than 10 seconds or has viewed more than one page on the website. So for me, 10 seconds really isn't quite long enough for me to consider them engaged. I would recommend at least 30 seconds to 60 seconds. So I think the standard, the default engagement time is too low. So you might want to adjust this and take it all the way up to 60 seconds or over 30 seconds. Because if you think about it, if someone lands on your website, they could just be on a page reading your blog for, at least 30 seconds before they've even clicked over to another page. So if I want to consider that an engaged visit, then I have the ability to be able to control that over here. So I'm going to change that to 30 seconds right there. Okay, so I'm now going to close those bits down. The other area I want to draw your attention to is right here in this enhanced measurement. So GA4 has this auto tracking built in, which is quite a cool feature actually, and works pretty well in the most part of it. So GA4 will automatically measure interactions such as your obviously basic page view tracking, but it will do scrolls, it will do outbound clicks, it will do things like site searches, video engagement, file downloads, and more recently, it will try and track form interactions, including form submissions. So some of these you might want to take a look at, you might want to configure in a little bit more detail. Examples of those might be the site search, for example, right here. So what I did there was I just clicked on this little cog icon here just to expand the settings. And I have the ability to be able to turn these on or off depending on my choosing. So some of the ones I might want to look at are maybe just the site search configuration for how that's been set up. So if I have a website with a search box on the site, Google Analytics 4 will automatically track that. And what it will do, it basically look for a search term query parameter. So when I carry out a search on my website, so if I go to the Annika website, for example, and I search for analytics, for example, you'll see here it's brought up the search results page. But if I look at the top here, I'll see that I've got the keyword and I've got the parameter. And the parameter in this case is S. So that is what I need to enter within here, or need to check whether it's actually included within there in order for this to work. So if you're not getting site search data within your GA4 account, just check that you actually have got the parameter included, and I can see I've got it included in this list. So I'm going to leave that on. Other things I advise you to turn off is this form interactions. So basically, Google will try and do its best job to try and track form submissions on your website. From experience, from seeing this on lots of different websites and accounts, this doesn't really work very well. This is something you're going to want to do yourself manually. If you're really serious about tracking form conversions, then this is something you're going to want to do yourself. You're not going to want to let Google take hold of this. So I strongly recommend that you deactivate form interactions right here. Okay. So once I've got that deactivated, I can then hit save, and that will bring it off. So all of these are auto events that will get passed into your account. So you want to take some time to have a look at those. Okay. The other thing you want to look at is conversion counting events. Okay, so if you go into conversions right here, this is a complete list of everything you currently have marked as a conversion within your account. So these are the conversions that will be reported under the conversions metric. These are also the conversions that will be available for import into Google Ads and other Google related products as well. So if there is an event that you want to see as a conversion, you first need to create that conversion. That conversion first needs to be created as an event. You can go into your events list here to see everything that you're currently recording. So we've got a bunch of events coming in here. But what you can do, if you haven't already imported from Universal Analytics, you basically have two options. You can either create the event within the interface, or you can send it in directly from either the code or from Google Tag Manager. What I'm going to do is just show you how to just do a basic URL conversion goal right here. So basically, you can create yourself a URL-based event by simply going into this event section, create event. You'll see that I've got no custom events currently, so I haven't set up anything currently. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a basic goal for anytime someone basically views let's say a blog page. Okay. So anytime someone accesses the blog, so I'm going to call this event viewed blog page. The event name has to be page view, okay, because it's firing on a page view, and then the actual either the page path or the page location or page title. So if I do page location contains blog, I want it to fire this event. So notice how I wrote it lowercase and I put little underscores between it. So now I've created a GA4 event, and it's going to, this is going to fire when the GA4 event is a page view and when the page location is blog. So if I create that now, hit create, and that is going to show up in my list. So this is really kind of a basic URL based tracking. So again, if you have a thank you page that you want to track, you do it in exactly the same way. You just specify the page location and put your thank you page URL in. Once I've got that in there, once I start collecting a little bit of data, I will see that come up as a listed event. I'll see that in my regular reports, and I'll also see it in this event section right here. But then what I can do from that event, I can then, if I go back here, once I see that event in this list right here, I can then mark that as a conversion. So if I toggle this right here, so if I toggle this one, for example, that is now going to be counted within my conversions. And if I go back to my conversions, I'll now see that I've got that event also added there. So that's been added. I can remove it at any time. So I can demark it if I want to. And take it back like that. If I want to re-add it again, I can do that. Hop into my conversions. And the other thing to be aware of right here is that we have the ability to be able to change the counting method. So Google GA4 will automatically count conversions and events every single time they occur. So if I have a visit and I personally fill in, if I complete a conversion like 5 times, GA4 is going to report it 5 times. However, when it comes to the conversions, just like in Universal Analytics, I can now choose whether I want to count it once per session or I want to count it once per event. So if I want to continue it in line with how I had it in Universal Analytics, I might be tempted to count it only once per visit. So that means if I complete the same conversion 5 times in my visit, it will only be counted once in GA4. So you've got these 2 options here. My general advice is to keep it to once per visit. That way your form inquiries will closer align with what you're really collecting in the system, for example. So once per event is probably recommended and most suitable, but just so you know, you do have the ability there to be able to change the counting method. So I'm happy with that. So basically, if you want conversions, you first need to have them available as an event within the interface. And then from that event, you can then mark it as a conversion. The other thing I just wanted to highlight to you guys is what I've seen a lot of and is a little bit kind of problematic within some accounts is the conversion counting. So, for example, I might be looking at something like a training, like a form completion or something like that. And within my standard reports, I might see that I'm not actually seeing any data for it, despite actually having some form submissions come in. So I know I've had form submissions, but it's not being reported within the standard report. One thing just to look out for is that often GA4 is applying thresholding. So basically it's restricting the data that you can see in certain use cases. And this is mainly if you are using, if you have Google Signals activated. So I just wanted to draw your attention to this area here within admin. So within your GA4 property area, within this reporting identity down here. So if I expand this, so you'll see there's three options. There's basically like the maxed out option that gives you basically all the kind of the full shebang of everything within Google's capability of tracking users. So basically things like user ID, Google Signals, device ID, modeling. It will use this by default. However, sometimes we're seeing that data is going astray, not always appearing, and that is because of this blended data model and the use of Google Signals. So sometimes GA4 will apply a threshold in order to protect user identities, and that's really common when you're working with small data sets and small numbers of conversions. So it's likely that you might not, if you're looking at a small date range and a small data set, that you might not see your data fully accurately. You can get over that by simply changing the reporting identity to device-based and saving it. And you can toggle this at any point. So that's the great thing about it. You can come back and forth. You can toggle this accordingly. If you then go back into your reports, into your conversion reports, you will then start to see different types. You then might start to see your events appear within this list right here. So that's just something I wanted to point out at this point in time. Okay, I'm going to talk about final bit with customizing and what you can do with this navigation bar here. So one of the cooler features of GA4 that they've introduced is this customization aspect and the ability to be able to change the menu to suit your own needs. So if I take this one, for example, so your navigation menu might look different to my navigation menu, and Google's now providing basically different options when you go to create an account, but not all navigation menus will be suitable for everybody. So I basically just wanted to point out that you do have the ability to be able to customize these menus. I can add in like extra reports. I can change the order and basically the contents of this navigation. And to do that, I can head into library right here. So I'm going to head into library right here. And this is where I can choose to edit my navigation and the reports that I have within each section. So this is something you can never do in Universal Analytics. So you can basically tailor this navigation to suit your own needs. So for example, if I wanted to add something to this report, say if I wanted to add something into like the acquisition report, for example, I could choose to do this. I could choose to update the landing page report, for example, right here. So I'm just going to show you a quick example of how to do that. So I first want to actually find the landing page report that I've got here. So I can either search for it here, or I can actually just click on there. So I'm going to do landing page report. I can make a copy of this report. And I can see it right here, my copy of landing page report. So what I might want to do is change this from, instead of it just being landing page, I might want to change it to something like landing page plus the query string. And that will basically eliminate the blanks, for example. And move that above there. I'm going to make that the default. I'm going to hit apply. It's going to update that. I'm then going to add in some additional metrics. So I might want to add in things like conversion rate. So I'm going to add in session conversion rate. I might want to add in engagement rate as well. So I've got session conversion rate. I'm going to get rid of the revenue, engagement rate, sessions. I'm going to apply that. I can then save that. So save changes to current report. I can go back now to my report list, and I should now see that in my report list right down here. I can change the name, by the way, but I'm just going to keep it. Let's rename it. So this is going to be, let's make this custom landing page report. Save it. Now, if I want to include that report within this menu up here, I can do that. And I can do that by going into this edit collection right here. And I need to search for it right here. There it is. So there's my existing landing page report, and I'm going to bring this one in. I'm going to slot it right above, right there. Again, remembering to hit save once you've done that. That's been saved. So now I should be able to go back. And now you can see in this navigation menu right here that I now have this custom landing page report right here. And you can do this with pretty much anything. There are certain restrictions, but you can do it with pretty much anything. So you can basically bring in your own customized report and incorporate them into this navigation right here. So yeah, lots of ways there to be able to customize. You can chop, change, add, remove, and you can really make this navigation your own. And I might do a future session actually about improving personalization within GA4. So there's some of the my kind of like top tips for getting going with this. Let me just just going to share my slides. So we will make some slides available afterwards. One thing I wanted to show you is that we do have this bonus giveaway, which we're giving away today. So we are giving away a free GA4 Looker Studio dashboard. So you can get going with this really easily we'll share the link and basically you can Sorry?
I've just posted the offer. So
brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So you can use this dashboard. You can make a copy of it. We have an e-commerce one there for obviously anyone with e-commerce data, and then for people with lead gen guys, we've also got a GA4 dashboard. And typically you're seeing an error right here. That's not my fault. Just to put it out there, that's a quota error because it's drawing from the Google Analytics demo account. So you won't always see that. It will still work. If you make a copy of it, you'll be then prompted to connect your own GA4 data to it. Go ahead and do that, and you'll basically see this report with your data updated. So we're seeing these quota errors because naturally everyone's rushing and accessing this at the same time. So that's what's going to happen. But don't worry about it. You will be able to use this for your own purposes. So we're just giving that away free today just to kind of help you get visibility of your data and set you off on the right foot. So
there's also a GA4 starter offer, which has just been posted, which was £2,000, now £1,700. I don't know if you want to mention that at all, Ed, but it says here, it gives you the setup, the reporting dashboards, bespoke virtual in-office training as well.
So basically, we'll do a basic setup for you, making sure you've got everything configured correctly. We'll sort you out with any kind of custom conversion tracking you have within reason, and provide you with a training session and handover about what we've done. So if you are looking for a professional setup or just a general health check and review of your setup, either pre-go live or post-go live, then we're available obviously to help you out with that.
Ed, there are 2 questions just for you to quickly answer. I'm okay just to put them to you now?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to take questions.
Someone said, if I've manually set up my GA4 and connected it to my Universal Analytics, do I still need to untick the create one for me toggle? Will I get 2 accounts in total, or will it register that I have 1?
Good question. So this goes back to the beginning. In your setup assistant, basically in the GA4 property that you've got, if you're happy with that property, go through that setup assistant and mark everything as complete. And that will sort you out. That will basically tell Google that the job is done. You don't need any further assistance on it. So that will mitigate any auto migration. So if you've got a GA4 account that is already connected to a universal account, leave it that way, but make sure you mark everything as complete.
Okay.
Does that answer the
one
question?
More. I'm kind of scrolling back. Sorry. Okay. There was one who remained anonymously. How can we identify or attribute visitors or events who fill in a particular form? We have 10,000 people coming in from PPC and 1,000 organic. We can see those numbers, but how do we identify which of these visitors are from when someone completes an inquiry form?
So at a very basic level, you've got your things like your acquisition reports, just like you had in Universal Analytics, where you basically got your channel sources. And then in the columns, you've got your GA4 events in a list, and you can select the individual GA4 events that you want to measure against. So you'll have a conversion column, and you'll also have an events column in those types of reports. That will then give you a sense as to what is, what channels, for example, are driving those events, what traffic sources are driving those events, for example. That's at a very basic level. Beyond that, you're moving more into creating custom segments, custom audiences of basically people who did a certain action on your website, and basically using that, and also using custom metrics in order to give you a bit more flexibility in the reporting. That's I could do like a morning's webinar just on conversion tracking and attribution, to be honest.
Yeah,
I hope that helps like a little bit. Like the basic metrics are there in the acquisition reports.
There's a couple more questions, but I've just posted, it's just gone 1 minute past 10. I posted about Google reviews. Obviously, Ed is amazing at this and really deserves some recognition out there. So I'm just posting those and then we'll finish off. How do you identify the form filler is from PPC or organic? Is that pretty much what you've just said, Ed, to be honest?
Yeah, yes. So it's the same thing. So you need to make sure you're actually tracking your forms to begin with. Know what GA4 event that's called. You may have like set it up manually. You may have imported it from Universal, but you need to know what the actual GA4 event is for that action. And then all you need to do actually within your reports is just select the drop down. Would it just help if I just quickly, for what it's worth, I'll just
maybe, because there's still
quite a lot of questions, Ed. I mean, there's quite a lot of questions here about whether, I think you can answer this at the same time, whether you should do by session or user. I think people are still confused about that. There was an earlier question that I don't think's been answered unless James, about e-commerce tracking, which wasn't mentioned.
Oh, sorry about that, Anne. I tried to scroll through all the way through and make sure.
No, it was right at the beginning. It was really early on.
So those last two questions, if I understand correctly, was a little bit. It was about attribution to specific channels and traffic sources. So you're basically in this event count column. This is where you'll find any relevant event that you've set up. So if it is a form submission, for example, then you need to locate that event, select it within the column, and then this is your conversion. This is your count. That's basically
really helpful.
And you can toggle this, by the way. So if you want to see it by source medium, you can toggle this, and then you get more kind of detailed information then specifically, just like analytics. You can search here as well. So if you just want to see like CPC traffic, which is your Google Ads traffic, for example, again, you can just filter right here. But you're looking at this event count column here, and whatever you've put into your conversion account, whatever you've marked as a conversion will also show up in this column right here as well.
I think the question was a bit more basic analytics in the sense of how do you track it, and it's usually either because you set up a thank you page and then you do what you did with the blog and make that the thank you page instead. Or if you haven't got a thank you page, then you have to have the actual submit button as being a tracked event as well. So I think the trouble with all of the things with this is a lot of people in the audience aren't really familiar with the basic reports within Google Analytics generally. So most of what Ed's done today is almost like the emergency of what you need to do this week. But I think we probably need to have a follow-up session just on getting people familiar with the reports. Because for me, the biggest problem is as a massive Universal Analytics user, is a lot of the reports, I can't find the same things. It's not as easy to use. So you have to create your own reports in the Exploration Center. So I think we do need to probably follow up with another session just on how to use it once you've got it set up properly.
Yeah, I think so. I think because a lot of people have still been leaning in Universal Analytics, I think come the go live, once everyone's attention starts turning more towards GA4, I think some of the kind of the gaps and the problems will start to show with people's tracking. So there'll be more questions coming forward. So yeah, we'll definitely do a future session on setting up conversion tracking. and yeah, getting everything hooked up.
But you
correctly.
have actually done a couple of previous webinars. So I think for people that are not either new to Annika or aren't familiar, there's at least one webinar on Google Tag Manager, and there's about 3 on GA4. So there's a bit of a track history of other webinars, and maybe if we do the slides, we can put those links in as well, because we'll email them out.
And remember, if you are panicking and you haven't really touched anything, done anything with GA4, but you're happy with your Universal Analytics setup, you do have the option to be able to import your conversions from Universal Analytics. So that could be an option for quite a few of you. You know, even if they're not perfect, then it's probably better than having nothing at all, and we can review that later today.
If you do that, will it import the e-commerce tracking as well?
Correct. Yes, it will. It will import. The transaction.
Otherwise, you've got to set that up. I assume in Google Tag Manager to get all the right tracking code on the page.
Yes, generally there's new code. There's new code involved for GA4 generally, and there's a new schema. Some of the existing code will still work, but you'll want to upgrade the new code at some point. So. Yeah, depending on what code you have, some of the older code will still work, and you'll still be able to bring in your conversions and transactions from Universal Analytics. So yeah, you might want to import all of that stuff and bring it in.
The other thing I wanted to make people aware of, if they are using Google Analytics, Universal Analytics to import into things like Google Ads, their conversions, is that if you don't do the automatic import and the Google Ads linking section that you've got here, your conversion tracking may break on you. And also similarly, if you don't import your audiences, if you use any audiences in Google Ads. So if any of you are using Google Ads and you haven't gone through a proper thought out step-by-step process, then you probably need some help. And it might be that, I don't know whether there's a checklist that we've done for our own clients that we possibly could send out with the slides, or maybe add it to the end of the slides.
We could do that. Yeah, and that's a really good point on the Google Ads. Firstly, make sure your GA4 account is linked to your Google Ads as described. When it comes to actually importing GA4 conversions, again, if you haven't marked this as complete, Google will auto migrate over any GA4 conversions that you have into Google Ads to use. So this is something that you're going to want to set up your conversions firstly, and then you're going to want to then select which of those conversions you want to bring over into your Google Ads account. But this could get messy quite quickly. So you're going to want to intervene and take a look at what you're actually using within Google Ads. So if you feel like you're completely out of your depth, then seek help and just get some advice.
We can offer, I mean, we can't offer everybody free advice on this because the staff would spend the next month doing it. But if any of you need, we can do it at a sort of slightly reduced hourly rate if you just want an hour's worth of direct consultancy where we'll fix it for you. So that might be worth mentioning. The other thing that I think is quite important is a question I wanted to ask is, when it does automatically migrate over, can you still go and see the old GA3 interface, or do you lose that altogether and you only get left with the GA4? Do you end up with two?
So you'll still have access to the old interface for supposedly up to like 6 months. So you'll be able to go in and see what you had set up. It just won't work anymore.
No. I thought you got a year's data. I thought they were going to let us hang around for a year.
No, all they've said so far is at least 6 months. At least 6 months. So GA360 customers, so if you have a premium version of Google Analytics, they've basically given you an extra 12 months of processing. So if you're a GA360 user, which is the enterprise version of this, you've got an extra 12 months before it shuts down.
And you know if you are, because you're going to have something, I can't remember if it's £12,000 or £20,000 a year bill. So it's not the cheapest option. And do you think people will go away from GA4 and use other platforms because it's not the easiest thing to use? Do you think people will migrate away, or do you think after a few months, when everybody's got used to it, it will?
I think that's partially happened. I think a lot of people have had frustrations up to date before some of the recent improvements within GA4, and people have looked at other alternatives out there. Matomo, Adobe Analytics, more cookieless tracking, things like that. So people have definitely started to look at alternatives, but I think what I've seen in the last, even in the last 4 weeks, you've seen more and more features and things get introduced. So GA4 is really bulking up now, and they are fixing a lot of the problems that we had even just 3 months ago. So I'm a believer that GA4 will come good. Google want people to continue to use its product. It's got an interest there in keeping people on for the long run, and so they can monetize it, so they can get revenue from its Google Cloud platform. So I think they're just going to invest in this, and you're going to see much more improvements coming down the pipeline. So I think it'll be enough to keep people on board, but we'll see.
Somebody wanted a link to the reviews again, so I'll just post that.
I've done that, but okay. I'll do it once
I
more.
think probably most.
Yeah, I've been all over that, so don't worry.
Well, there's still 52 people in the room, so I don't know.
I know. You can see that everyone's thinking about that 1st of July deadline.
Yeah, somebody else asked about, will you be able to set this up after the 1st of July? I think the problem is that if you've already got an account, it will auto-migrate, but I'm guessing you could still set up a brand new one, couldn't you, Ed?
Yes, you can absolutely set up a brand new property anytime. The auto-migration thing that's just something Google will do as a bit of a safeguard anyway. So you might find that suddenly you have a GA4 property sitting in your account that you didn't know anything about, and that's been auto-created by Google. And perhaps it's brought across all of the UA settings as well. So again, you'll want to actually investigate your current account, see what the status is currently. If you've got a GA4 account, you're going to want to go through that setup assistant. You're going to basically want to mark off all of the ones that you don't want to have auto-migrated, so you can take back some control.
And the reason why you're offering the free Looker Studio, which it might be worth just bringing that back up again, is because GA4 reporting has still got some limitations. I know from our point of view, Looker Studio was called Data Studio until recently. So if you want to see any previous webinars on that, you'll have to look it up as Data Studio. But we've got a couple of reports and graphs where we've got the GA3 and the GA4 sort of two separate lines, so you can see the overlap and the difference. Because one of the big things that people are going to get very frustrated is that the data doesn't match. The whole way that the data works is completely different, and even the sessions or total revenue can be out by 5 or 10%. And then when you look at individual sources, it can be much further out, and some sources will be traffic sources will be completely different. So have you got any comments on that at all, Ed?
So I've included within this dashboard, I have done a bit of a GA4 UA comparison. This is really kind of just basic side-by-side table, just broken down by host name. So it tells you what domain is actually collecting the data. It's got the equivalent metrics across each system. So we've got total users in GA4 versus users in UA. We've got the session counts here. We've got page views. So we've got views in GA4, page views in Universal. Obviously transactions, if that's relevant. We've got total conversion count here. Everything you've marked as a conversion event here. And then your goal completions right here. I couldn't merge these together and show you a joint tab, because when you copy this yourself, it would have broken anyway. So this is the best I've kind of got for doing that at a basic level. But
Yeah,
this is
I think
quite
we
helpful.
probably need to do some training on that, because you really need the two, and also it depends when you actually started collecting the GA4 data, because I mean we were trying to encourage people to collect it a year ago, so there'll be a year's overlap.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as we can see by the rush of people asking us to do this in the last 2 weeks, and by the poll today, you know, so many people haven't even started yet. So they're not going to have any overlap of data at all. But if you do have an overlap of data, or you've got at least 1 month where you can do a direct comparison, it is worth trying to understand that, because if you've got to suddenly report to your board that your Google ads, for example, probably won't be Google ads because it's probably been done. So let's say Facebook ads, because I've got some real data on that. If you go and look at the case study that we won all our awards from, GA4 was reporting 66% of what GA3 was reporting. So from that perspective, the client was suddenly seeing that the Facebook revenue had dropped by, you know, nearly a third. And it was probably being attributed into direct revenue. So you've got big problems when you've got to go and suddenly report a completely different scenario, which I think is going to be something that people are going to, managers are going to get very upset about, because it's going to make them query where their money's being spent.
Yeah, the big one is making sure that you're actually tracking on the right domain. The amount of accounts I look at that have like they might have had their universal analytics spreading like 3 different domains or subdomains, and then they've installed their GA4 property and that's only on 1 domain. So yeah, just even simply looking at it by host name and what website the code is on, broken out like this, can be like really helpful.
Sorry, go on. Finish.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think definitely a Looker Studio session at a later date, I think would be really helpful for like everybody, so they can compare their data side by side.
Another one we used to see a lot, I mean, this is a UA issue and probably will carry across, is that we would find that somebody had set up their e-commerce tracking on their PayPal, but have forgotten to add it into SagePay, or the other way around, more likely. And actually, it wouldn't match what was in their. It wouldn't match what was in their website either. So you do need to make sure that you're collecting the right stuff and it matches all the way through from GA3, GA4 through to your website. And also, we know that if you things like Facebook ads, if you go and look what you see in Ads Manager in Meta, that doesn't match at all either. So you're going to have some big issues with the data being so different from one scheme to another, or one program to another. Anyway, on that rather depressing note, I mean, some of the new stuff that they've introduced is looking quite good. So I'm sure they'll get there, and I'm guessing it's going to carry on developing for a few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the link between GA and Looker Studio, which is what you're seeing here, this dashboarding tool, that's really improved as well. So they're working on it. They are working behind the scenes and making improvements. So yeah, I'm confident it's going to come good.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Just before everybody goes, we've got an amazing session next week. We've actually got TikTok presenting to us on e-commerce shops. So I think the invite for that will go out on Monday. That is next week, isn't it, Katie?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Eds. That was amazing. I learnt loads, so really, really useful. And
amazing feedback, Ed. Well done.
Yeah, cool. Thanks
and just everyone keeps asking me privately, but we have said it a few times. This will be available in about an hour's time. It does render quite quickly, doesn't it, Anne?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's a lot of love coming through with the emojis, so that's always good. Okay.
All
right, then.
See ya.
Okay, see you next week.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.